Welcome into the Sports Bars podcast. I'm Corey Puffett. That's Eric and Evan. And that is the NFC East. How's my Joe Buck impression coming? We've got a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk some football with Week 17 coming up. Of course, we've got some big matchups that will determine playoff spots for the NFL. 7 out of 14 spots still left to be decided. We've got some baseball news to discuss, but we're going to start with professional basketball, the association. Just a couple of things to discuss tonight. DeMatha had a pretty good showing yesterday in the NBA with two former DeMatha Stags leading their teams in scoring yesterday, those being Victor Oladipo and Jeremy Grant. Markelle Fultz had a double-double yesterday, and he's been an integral part of the Magic's 4-0 start to the season. But here locally, Russell Westbrook had his third triple-double of the season, and it's a pretty good start for him. Eric, I know you've been keeping track of him. You've tweeted a couple times how much fun it actually kind of is having Westbrook here in D.C. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and his start with the Wizards?
Well, he's been as advertised, and as we've seen him both when he was with the Rockets and when he was with the Thunder, he's definitely the court general. He's still a great passer. He's still a great athlete. And I think that the reason why it's cooler when he's on your team is because you don't really have to get into the nitty-gritty of how good is he actually. You can just appreciate the fact that he's a good player and that he's a dynamic player, so he's fun to watch, and he makes your team better. Like, he definitely improves the Wizards, which doesn't say much because the Wizards are still terrible. They haven't won a game yet.
Well, that's probably why he improves them, because we've talked about this with him before. When he's on a good team with good players around him, it seems like he kind of makes those teams worse because he, hogs the ball, so to speak. He's doing all this stat padding and whatnot. When you go to a bad team, you can't really make that team worse. You can only make it better. But the ceiling is still going to be, I don't want to say the ceiling is lower with him because the ceiling already is very low for the Wizards right now. But, no matter what you do, no matter what you put around him in DC, if you build up your team through the draft or free agency or what have you, or the players you have just, get better, they're going to be limited more than maybe they could be with somebody else who's a better ball distributor, who plays better with others.
Yeah, we've talked about that. He's more of a floor raiser than a ceiling raiser. I don't think it's because of any type of, I'm not going to call it ball hogging. I think that's unfair because you could say LeBron James is a ball hog because he has the ball in his hands all the time. But LeBron has the skills to make good players better and to take advantage of their skill sets, whereas Russ doesn't really have that. Like, his skill set is very much, I've got the ball, I'm going to try to score, and if I don't, I'm going to try to pass it to somebody else, like to shoot a three, which is fine, but he doesn't play much defense, never has been a good defender. He doesn't provide much shooting as it is, so you can't really put a playmaker alongside him and say, hey, Russ, let this guy run the show for this play, and then he might kick it to you for an open three because Westbrook can't shoot threes, so that doesn't do you any good. But that doesn't really matter because, like you said, the Wizards aren't in position to be competing for a championship. Russell Westbrook has come in here to replace John Wall for what Wall provided to the Wizards back in 2017 when they were pretty competitive. I think that Westbrook at this point in their careers is the better player, but it's certainly not going to elevate the Wizards to becoming a team that can win the East. Like, that's not even a thought. And frankly, given the way they've started, it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs, but at least it'll be more fun to watch versus having, and I don't want to impugn the bench players that had to fill in for John Wall, but it certainly helps to have a starting caliber and borderline all-NBA guard running the show with Bradley Beal in the backcourt, whereas before it was pretty much Beal just had to score 35 points, the Wizards would give up 130 a game, and they would lose almost every night.
Now they lose almost every night anyway, but it's more
Yes.
entertaining.
Yes, and I noted the triple-double thing that you mentioned, Corey, because they mentioned that on the broadcast yesterday. It's his third triple-double in 3 games that he's played because he sat one of those games.
Yeah, the first guy since Oscar Robertson to do that.
Yeah, and he's averaged a triple-double 3 different times now in his career, like for the season. And honestly, it doesn't mean that much. It just doesn't. Like, and I've never cared about triple-doubles. We know he's going to get a lot of assists because he is a good passer and he is able to draw that defensive attention. He's obviously going to score 10 points a game because he takes enough shots. And his style of play dictates he's going to grab rebounds. That doesn't necessarily make you a great player. It just makes you a prolific player. There's a difference. And while I think that he does add an element that makes the team better, like I said, the triple-double does not reflect that, in my opinion. It's just an arbitrary group of numbers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's pretty much it right now in the NBA. Eric will be hosting next week, so I'm sure he'll give us a little more of a rundown of what's going on as we get through these first few weeks of the season. In Major League Baseball, the Padres are making a huge splash. This is not exactly the time of year that we're talking a lot of baseball, but the Padres have made 3 pretty big moves over the past few weeks, or really few days. They've reached a deal with Korean baseball star Ha-seong Kim, who's an infielder and is one of the top prospects out of Korea this year. They went and acquired Yu Darvish from the Chicago Cubs. And the big move is getting Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays. So now they picked up 2 really good pitchers, really good infielder to add to a really good team they've already been building. Guys like Manny Machado already there and Fernando Tatis. Are the Padres a World Series contender at this point, do you think?
Yes. Because my main criticism of the Padres is, they spent all this money to get Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer, but neither one of those guys is pitching. So now they have some stud pitchers in here, some stud pitchers who've had success in the postseason. So, it's going to be a lot of staying up late watching the Padres take on the Dodgers when the season rolls around.
So World Series contender, yes. Eric, do you think that they should be considered the favorites to win the NL West over the Dodgers?
Probably not. I think that they're going to make it interesting now. But the Dodgers just came off of, we kind of forget how dominant they were because of the shortened season. Like, the fact that they only played 60 games kind of muted how prolific they were at a pace to win so many games.
When you don't see the 100 next to your name, it doesn't say, it doesn't feel as big.
Yeah, and if they had played at a pace that they had, they probably would have won. I don't remember exactly how many they won, but it was probably close to a pace to win well north of 105 games. It might have approached, close to the Seattle Mariners and the Chicago Cubs that won 116. Like, that's how good they were, and they haven't fallen off. They didn't really lose anybody of significance, and there's still moves to be made for them. There's rumors that they're looking to trade for Nolan Arenado, so if they do that, then that just puts them right back another leg up on the Padres, whereas the Padres had holes to fill, and this fills them, but it doesn't quite elevate them to above the Dodgers. But I agree with Evan that this definitely makes them a World Series contender. They're definitely a threat to LA, and if they get into a 5 or a 7 game series with the Dodgers or anybody in the National League, they certainly could win that series and advance and win the NL pennant. And the thing is, this isn't the first moves, or these aren't the first moves they've made. They started building a rotation at the trade deadline last year with some of the trades they had made, and they still have Chris Paddock, who they hope will return to form. He had a fantastic rookie year. He kind of fell off a little bit last year, but he's still an incredibly talented pitcher. This team has more than just the 2 guys they acquired. They've got 3 or 4 pitchers now that would be probably upper rotation starters on most teams. So they're going to be a really fun team to watch. I don't know if they've ironed out all their bullpen troubles yet, and that's definitely going to be something they have to do if they want to win the World Series. But right now, they're looking to win at least 95 games if everybody can stay healthy and plays to standard.
I think this move clearly vaults the Padres over the Braves for the title of second best team in the NL. The other teams in NL are kind of not great.
Yeah, and the Padres, if I recall correctly, they had the second best record in the National League last year.
Yeah, they were 2 games ahead of the
Dodgers,
Braves.
and they had the second best run differential, so it wasn't a fluke by any means. Now, again, 60 games, a lot can change when you add the other 102, but the last time we saw these teams, you would probably say the Padres were better than the Braves already, so it's a safe bet that they've moved ahead of them, even when you consider the noise of a shortened season.
And I did some quick math over here. The Dodgers went 43-17 in the 60-game season.
116.1.
Yeah, so that's 116.1 if you go for the full 162.
Yep, and so yes, they were on pace at least to approach and maybe even equal the Mariners and Cubs record. Looking at the East and specifically just at the Rays, I mean, obviously, you also have to look at some other things, but looking at the Rays, they went 40-20. They were on pace to win 108 games. They were the top team in the AL East for the regular season, and for the postseason, they made it all the way to the World Series. What does losing Blake Snell mean for them? Why did they trade him? Does it make sense for them to trade him?
I have no idea. I wouldn't have traded Blake Snell, but I don't know what his contract situation is looking like, and the Rays have no money, yet they keep winning. So, if you have a pitcher like Blake Snell, you're eventually going to have to pay him. So I figure the Rays are probably, getting rid of a guy at his peak value so they can, develop a new Blake Snell. But this is the move I would have made.
Yeah, like Blake Snell's pay jumped from $7 million to 10.5 from 20 to 21 as a base salary. That obviously doesn't account for the adjustments that they had to make because of the shortened season. But so his pay was going up, and that's going to continue to go up as the years go on. And this is sort of
free agent.
2024. So the Padres are going to have him for 3 seasons. Yeah. Three seasons. Yep.
Okay.
So, but this is the Rays' business model. This is what they've done. They get these good young players. They develop them into a group of guys that can win a World Series. Like we just saw, they were, a couple games away from beating the Dodgers. They competed in that World Series against them. And then when the guys start to get to approaching almost veteran status, they flip them for prospects and restart the process. This is just what they've done because they don't have the luxury of shelling out money, which is, people talk about free agency and how that's tough. But when you're a team like the Rays or the Oakland A's, where you're not even willing to pay these guys arbitration because it would blow up your payroll to the point it's a level that you're not willing to abide by. I just think that's such an indictment of your organization, in my opinion. I think the Rays are wonderfully run, but I think that the ownership is hamstringing the team to such a degree that they can't be competitive unless they're perfect. And I feel like if you own a baseball team, you owe your team a fighting chance. And that's not what the Rays are getting. That's not what the A's have gotten. They constantly have to say goodbye to guys, not 6 years in, but 3 or 4 years in, because that first year of arbitration is too expensive when that player is really good. And I think that's something that I would seriously hope would change, but that's the culture of baseball, and I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with Eric. I think it's kind of ridiculous how you have a league and not everybody has the same resources to compete with on the field. That just seems absurd to me. But that's baseball. They've done it this way since Abner Doubleday, I'm sure. So,
But you got to give the Padres credit in that regard too, though, because you wouldn't consider San Diego a big market or like a cultural beacon of Major League Baseball. It's definitely not that. And yet here they are. They paid Manny Machado. They just traded for Yu Darvish, who I'm sure is making a pretty hefty salary himself as a veteran.
That's why the Cubs got rid of him.
Yes. And now you got Blake Snell, who has an increasing price tag, but they've got control of him for 3 years.
Hosmer.
They paid Eric Hosmer probably too much money, but nevertheless, they paid him. So
we don't like Eric Hosmer on this podcast.
We don't, and he's also not that good, and he's being paid like an all-star, but he's still on the team and producing, so you can't really argue with what the Padres are doing.
Mm-hmm. And when they traded for Snell and Darvish, they didn't give up any of their top 6 or 7 prospects. There's just still more good players coming. That's insane.
Yeah, and that just tells you that that's clearly the motivation of the Rays was to get Snell off the books, and we also don't know. I kind of wonder if what happened in Game 6 affected Snell's relationship with the organization, with Kevin Cash, that maybe he was like, I want to move on, because I'm pretty upset that I was pitching the game of my life in the biggest game of my life, and you cut it short and we lost.
Mm-hmm. Not only did they lose, but as soon as he walked off the mound, there goes the game.
Yep.
It's over.
Two batters later, the Dodgers were ahead. So,
I don't think we have a whole lot to talk about with college football. We talked about the bowl games that are coming up for the most part. The Cheez-It Bowl was this past weekend between Oklahoma State and Miami.
Yes.
OSU won that game 37-34. But we've got some other games that are coming up. The New Year's Six bowl games start up actually tonight. An 8:00 game between number 7 Florida and number 6 Oklahoma in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. We've got some games on Friday, including the 2 college football semifinals, the Rose Bowl featuring Notre Dame and Alabama, and the Sugar Bowl featuring Ohio State and Clemson. But we've talked about these last week, so unless there was some new development or something else to bring up regarding college football, Evan, we can move on.
The only thing that's happening with college football, so we like to have a little fun with the ridiculous bowl game names. With last year's, what was it, Big Green Egg Starkville Integrity Bowl. So I that's not what this little game will be about. So I'm gonna list a set of bowl game names, and they're all real, and I want you to tell me what they have in common. So
okay.
First, so I've got, was it 5? So we have the Mercari Texas Bowl, the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, and the Las Vegas Bowl. What do those 5 have in common?
Are they all... They're all played south of the Mason-Dixon line.
I mean, probably.
So do I win?
I feel like we're playing Connections. Have you ever played Connections? Like Ken Jennings puts together 5 trivia questions. They're all really hard. They're not easy questions to answer, and you have to answer all of them right, and then you have to explain what's the connection between the 5 correct answers.
I haven't played that.
Yeah, he posts them on Twitter sometimes, and they're a pain in the ass. So this feels like that.
Okay.
I might have to ask you to read them again.
Are they all games? Are they all bowl games that have at some point featured a team with less than 6 wins?
No.
Okay.
That's definitely wrong. So I just tell you, all 5 of those were canceled in 2020.
Oh,
Oh,
I figured that would be too easy. That was gonna be like my first guess.
Oh, well, why didn't you guess it?
I was like, they're all games that no longer take place or something.
Yeah, no, they were those were all canceled in 2020, among others. I thought those 5 had the best names. All right, so the second and last one, we've got the Cactus Bowl, the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, the Insight Bowl, the Copper Bowl, and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. But those 5 haven't come.
they're not being played either.
I think, well, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's not the answer though.
Oh, okay.
None of them have a ranked team playing in them.
No, that's not right. So the answer to this one, they're all the same bowl game.
What?
Yes, the same bowl game has gone by those 5 names, including the Cheez-It Bowl and other names as well.
Wait,
yeah.
how do we track if it's the same bowl game though? Like by the stadium it's played in?
No, by the sort of founding of the organization of the bowl game. They just keep changing sponsors and names and stuff.
Oh.
So like this year's Cheez-It Bowl, which was last night, is different from this bowl.
Which has gone by the Cheez-It Bowl at some point in the past.
Which has also been the Cheez-It Bowl in the past.
God.
Last night's Cheez-It Bowl was the Camping World Bowl and the Citrus Bowl and the something else.
Oh my goodness. All right. And
so,
you got one more for us?
Underscoring the point that the bowl game names are so dumb. Why do we have this? This is absurd.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all the same bowl game.
Okay, well that was
Kind
fun.
of confused me when I was looking it up because last year the Cheez-It Bowl was what's now the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which was canceled.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the National Football League. Got quite a bit to talk about from Week 16, starting with the football team. They lost to the Carolina Panthers. And Dwayne Haskins. We have to talk about Dwayne Haskins again.
I believe I had that one, by the way.
Yes, you did. Evan and I thought that Washington would win. They did not. But we've got to talk about Dwayne Haskins again this week. Because
hopefully for the last time.
He stunk it up. Well, maybe not for the last time, because apparently the Panthers are among the teams that are interested in him. Like what? Yeah, so, we beat the Panthers and we ended up getting their coach. They beat us and they might be getting our quarterback. Dwayne Haskins sucked. He was terrible. According to Football Outsiders Quick Reads, he was the worst quarterback of Week 16. For comparison, his replacement, Taylor Heineke, was number 18 out of 36 on their list because 36 quarterbacks played a significant number of snaps this week. He was awful. He was just awful. He didn't look like he had prepared at all, which is pretty much par for the course with him, to be quite frank. And he ended up getting benched. They brought in Taylor Heineke, who, actually gave us a chance on some drives. It was too late for him to give us a chance in the game. But I certainly feel like having him in, if Alex Smith still can't go this week, gives Washington a legitimate chance to beat the Eagles, whereas with Dwayne Haskins, that would be no chance at all, in my opinion, based on what I've seen the last couple weeks from him. But the main thing that we kind of have to talk about with Dwayne Haskins, besides just his terrible play on the field, has to do with Booger McFarland and his comments about Dwayne Haskins after the fact on I guess he was on ESPN, when he talked about how he is indicative of young black athletes caring more about their brand than about the hard work that it took to get here and that it takes to succeed at this level. And I wouldn't inherently have a problem with him saying it's indicative of young athletes who feel that way, because we've seen plenty of young athletes who feel that way. Some of them black, some of them white. The fact that he's specifically calling out young black athletes when some of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL right now, most of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL right now are black, just seems very tone deaf, seems very unaware of what's going on in the league, like the reality of the NFL right now. And it just seems, I don't know what purpose he was trying to serve in making those comments.
I mean, my thinking on his comments is that it misses the mark, I guess.
Right. I feel like he's trying
Dwayne
to appeal
Haskins,
to a certain audience in making these sorts of comments, and I don't get it.
Dwayne Haskins being black has nothing to do with why he's not in the league anymore. It was his own poor decision making, his own lack of work ethic, and his own lack of ability to succeed on the field is why he's gone.
Yeah, the same thing for Jamarcus Russell, had nothing to do with his skin color. Same thing for Johnny Manziel.
Johnny Manziel, my goodness gracious. Yeah, if you are playing really well and you decide to act a fool off the field, the team will put up with you, right? Like, the Steelers put up with a bunch of crap from Antonio Brown for years and years and years.
And Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger. They were winning a lot of games up there. So, they'll put up with you. But if you're stinking it up on the field and causing trouble off the field, I mean, that's a double negative, and you got to go. It doesn't matter what you look like. So I would like to think that's what Booger McFarland was trying to say, and I would like to think that's what he meant, but that's not what he said, and that's not how it's been interpreted.
Yeah, I take issue a little bit with also it's had a little bit of a get off my lawn feel type to it. I mean, where he's talking about these young kids they're not focused on putting in the work. I'm like, yeah, that's every young person from every era ever. Young people don't understand things like that. They're inexperienced. They have to learn because they have to mature. That's how it's been since the dawn of time. But the wording of specifically focusing on black players, I thought it strange because the idea is that Haskins got left behind here because he wasn't willing to put in the work that the other players in the league were. But 70% of the league is black, so that means that most of them are putting in the work, and it's not an issue of some type of culture based off of the color of your skin. It's just based off of, are you willing to do what it takes? And so I did a little bit of research to illustrate this point.
And Evan is gone.
I don't know where Evan went. I wish he was around to hear this, but I guess I'll just have to speak to Corey here. So I looked at the last 10 years of first-round draft picks at the quarterback position, excluding 2020. I didn't want to include the rookies this year. So I looked 2010 to 2019. So that's 10 years worth of quarterbacks. There are 30 quarterbacks in those 10 years drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Out of those 30, 10 of those quarterbacks were black. That means that 20 weren't black. 19 were white. One of them was Marcus Mariota. So there's that. So I use the metric that Football Outsiders use to determine whether or not a quarterback is a bust or not. And their idea of a quarterback that is not a bust is if in years 3 through 5 they accumulate more than 500 DYAR, which we've talked about on this podcast a lot. So not a super high bar to clear by any means.
So you're excluding players drafted in 2018 and 2019 then, because they haven't reached year 3.
No, I'll include them based off of what we've seen. Still, we can speculate on how good or not good they can or will be. I'm not going to sit there and throw them out completely.
Okay.
But so out of the 10 black quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round over those 10 years, how many do you think were busts?
Well, Haskins.
Yeah.
Russell was drafted before that time frame.
Yes.
So you said 10. That would include. So we've got Haskins, a bust. We've got Mahomes is good.
Mm-hmm.
Watson is
A
good.
little bit.
Yeah.
Dak was a first round pick, right? Or no, he was
No,
a
he
third
was-
round.
He was a fourth round pick.
pick. Wilson was a third round pick.
Yep.
Lamar
This
was a
is only
first round
first
pick. He's
rounders?
good.
Only first rounders. Who was
Yeah,
that?
only
Corey? I didn't
first
hear-
rounders. Yeah, Lamar was a first round pick. He's good.
Yep.
Barely a first round pick.
Still a first round
but still a first round
Kyler
pick.
Murray.
pick.
Kyler Murray, first round pick, good.
Mhm.
Trying to think of who else. I would say probably 2 or 3 were busts.
3 were busts based off of that metric.
Who are the 2 I'm missing besides Haskins?
Robert Griffin III and EJ Manuel.
Oh,
Oh,
jeez.
good lord.
And see, the thing is,
wait,
I feel like
wait,
EJ
wait.
Manuel.
So was Geno Smith not a first round pick?
no,
No,
he
just a
was
second.
he was sitting there on draft day pouting because he wasn't a first round.
That's
pick.
right. Okay. That's
So
crazy
those-
that Geno Smith was picked after EJ Manuel. Not that either of them should have been first round picks, but Geno I thought was better.
Yeah, and those guys were. I feel like EJ Manuel was only a first round pick because the QB class was so bad that his demand was up because the Bills had to take somebody.
Yeah.
So like he almost like I feel bad even including him. And RG3 got hurt. So the 7 successful quarterbacks, by this metric, or Cam
Could
Newton.
you list them off again, right quick?
Oh yeah, Cam Newton is in that.
Yeah, so Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. Those are the 7 guys.
Okay.
So 7 out of 10. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that means that there were 20 non-black quarterbacks that were drafted.
And you
How
would
many-
hope that about 14 of them would.
How many of them do you think were busts?
I'm gonna guess. I'm
I
gonna
guess
guess more than
11.
6.
14.
14 were
14.
busts.
14. So
So to be in line to have both be the same, 14 would have not been busts. Instead, it's the reverse.
yes.
Good Lord.
You are over the last 10 years, black quarterbacks are more than twice as likely to succeed by this measurement than their white counterparts, or in Marcus Mariota's case, his Hawaiian counterpart. So here are the quarterbacks that were successful that were not among the black quarterbacks. Sam Bradford, which is he barely made it.
He was successful at his bank account.
Wow,
Yes,
that man!
yes, he was.
You might
Doing
want to
the
make
work
that
over there.
15 unsuccessful.
Hey, by this, he
Which
made
I mean, might kind of it just furthers your point. Honestly, the fact that he's one of the successes.
the fact that but I also included Jameis Winston in the other one, so you kind of give
Yeah.
and take.
Fair enough.
All right, so Sam Bradford, Andrew Luck, Ryan Tannehill, Jared Goff, and I made some assumptions on Josh Allen. We think he's going to make it. He's pretty awesome right now, and Baker Mayfield. Like, those guys are either have already cleared that bar or are approaching it and are still only in their 3rd year.
Okay.
So we've got 14 guys, and these are some comical names that are going to come up.
I already know you're gonna put Trubisky in there.
Yeah,
I still think he has potential, but fine.
Mitchell Trubisky? What? No.
I still think he has
Come
potential.
I mean, I still think Josh Rosen has potential too. So
yeah, but we'll get
Yeah.
there. Okay,
I'll
so
get to him in a minute, I guess.
yeah, so I'll start from back to 2010 and work our way forward. Busts from that era, if you will. Tim Tebow,
Yikes.
Jake Locker,
Oh, jeez.
Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder,
Christian Ponder.
Brandon Whedon,
Oh my god.
Blake Bortles,
Mhm.
Johnny Manziel,
Mhm.
Carson Wentz,
Oh, the Wentz wagon.
Mitchell Trubisky,
Your boy.
Paxton Lynch,
Out of the league.
Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I'm forgetting somebody.
Josh Rosen, who's on his 4th team now.
Yes, he is. Daniel Jones, and I might have actually missed somebody because there were definitely 14. Oh, and Marcus Mariota, who is not white, but he's not black either. So those are the guys. And I don't think you would be able to make a case that any of them are inappropriately labeled as busts unless you're going to be Corey and like Mitch Trubisky because he had a couple of nice fantasy weeks for you.
Well, sure. I mean, there's a couple of names in there that you could say maybe they could pan out, but none of them have so far, and that's all we have to go on.
Yeah, Daniel Jones has had 2 sub-replacement level seasons in 2 years. I know that New York Giants fans love the guy, but
honestly, the when I say couple, I wasn't thinking of him. I'm obviously, I already said I still think that Trubisky could pan out. The other that I was thinking of is potential, just based on, obviously it was one game against not a great opponent, but Marcus Mariota played really well in replacing Derek Carr the other week. If he winds up getting another chance, who knows? Maybe. I'm not counting on it. I'm not holding my breath, but maybe.
Yeah, that's doubtful. I think he's made to be a backup at this point in his career. So the bottom line is a lot more busts among the white guys.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the white guys that busted, a lot of them resemble the makeup of Dwayne Haskins more so than they do some more unfortunate stories like Robert Griffin III. Paxton Lynch would rather play Fortnite than read his playbook. Johnny Manziel lived to party. Even Baker Mayfield, he's gotten it together, but his career was teetering on the brink of bust status until Ewing theory kicked in. He was on the verge of this guy's not going to have a job in a couple of years. So now perhaps he's righted the ship and he looks like he's going to be a quarterback for a while. But he had issues where we worried his priority was not football. So this is certainly not an issue where you can divide anybody on racial lines. It's a matter of your personal makeup. And then when you look at quarterbacks that were not drafted in the first round but have become successes, oftentimes those guys are black too. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. Hell, Jalen Hurts wasn't even supposed to be on anybody's radar, and suddenly he's looking like he might be the future of the damn Eagles.
Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick's another example. So, I mean, it was a ridiculous talking point from the beginning. I think that Booger was trying to lecture the youngins or something like that, so maybe his heart was in the right place. But it felt like it was a talking to that wasn't warranted. It was not necessary because, I mean, for all intents and purposes, most of these kids are doing the right thing. This is a Dwayne Haskins issue.
Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with what he looks like. He just didn't get it done, right? You guys, it's your job. If you keep screwing around and breaking rules, and then when you show up to work, you don't look as good as you should be, they'll send you up the road.
And another thing is that I just lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Okay.
It's gone. It was there, but now it's gone. But actually, no. But another thing is, now I'm remembering it, the issue of building your brand. I don't see an issue with quarterbacks trying to build their brand. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got to capitalize on your image in a time like this when you're successful and somewhat famous. But your brand should be football.
Successful.
Yeah, your brand is football, not everything else. So if you want to do commercials, if you want to, Chase Young does Mercedes-Benz commercials, but Chase Young also puts the work in on the football field and is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. So, his brand is, I'm a really good football player. Anything else is missing the point.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have all the fame and the money and, all the cool-looking stuff without playing good football. So, none of the outside of football stuff can get in the way of playing good football because then all of it is going to go away.
Yep. Potentially. I mean, looks like Johnny Manziel is going to find himself in a new league. But, we'll see what happens with that. It's a weird looking league too. I was reading up about it. It's going to be fan driven. The fans call the plays. It's going to be made up of 4 teams that play a 6-game schedule. I don't know. It's going to look kind of interesting.
So I'm gonna just preempt this right now. We are not spending 40 minutes discussing the ins and outs of this league like we did with the AF. I will not participate in that. Sorry. I will take a walk.
No, it was just
sounds
kind
pretty
of
cool.
interesting that
We should do a fantasy league.
No. With 4 teams. So only 4 teams of players. Talk about your Ravens this past weekend, Evan.
The Ravens rolled the Giants, kind of like we predicted. Got a little close. There was a fumble at the goal line. Ravens were unable to force any turnovers from the turnover-prone Danny Dimes. That was a little disappointing. But other than that, the pass rush finally got home. The Giants' defense had been playing better in recent weeks, and the Ravens ran all over them. So it was a good showing, and hopefully we keep it going against Cincinnati.
Jared Goff broke his thumb the other day. He was passing the ball. His thumb hit against a Seattle rusher's helmet, and it was pointing back at him away from the rest of his fingers. So he had thumb surgery on his throwing hand. He has been ruled out Sunday against the Cardinals. And Cooper Kupp was placed on the COVID list, so he's also out Sunday against the Cardinals. In not exactly a must-win game for the Rams. They can lose and still get in, assuming the Packers beat the Bears. But if the Bears were to beat the Packers and the Rams lose to Arizona, suddenly the Rams are out of the playoffs. So pretty big loss for Los Angeles. We had a pretty big shakeup in the AFC playoff picture this past weekend. The Raiders blew it and are now eliminated from the playoffs, and also could have potentially messed some things up for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that, Evan.
Oh, my God. So on Saturday, I was with my parents and my sister. We went to my grandmother's house for dinner, and so we were watching the game and opening gifts. We were watching watched the first half there, and then I watched the second half in the car on my phone. And we were almost back to my parents' house right as the Raiders figured out how to lose. They were taking a knee at the Dolphins' goal line to run more time off the clock. They kick a field goal. Dolphins get the ball back. The Dolphins got all the way down the field in 2 plays. This was unbelievable choke job. I'm so mad. I was so mad with the Raiders. I wanted John Gruden fired into the sun. He's making all this money to rebuild Raider Nation and stuff, and they're a complete joke. Still, ain't nothing changed. Right? They just have a more famous coach now.
So
that's it. So the Raiders, goodbye. Get out. Y'all need to be relegated to the XFL or the SEC or someplace. Just go.
So I found it interesting because the only reason we're even talking about the strategy at the end of the game for the Raiders is because they blew the game. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I shouldn't say I don't know. I do know. I don't agree with taking a knee in that situation when they did on 3rd and goal. Okay, so you take a knee, you kick the field goal, there's still 20 seconds left. I'm not trading 20 seconds, or I'm not trading 40 seconds for 4 points, or 4 points for 40 seconds. I'm not doing that. Okay, I'd rather have the touchdown, and then if I score the touchdown, I can go for 2 and make it a 7-point game in case disaster does strike. We'll still have overtime. Deciding to kneel the ball there, it was basically like saying, okay, we'll kick the field goal, and then hey, our awesome defense, which is the worst in the league by some metrics, is really gonna not let that one crazy play happen. Not only do they do it, but they also grabbed Ryan Fitzpatrick's face mask.
They almost unscrewed his hand.
Yeah, which basically put them in immediate field goal range, stopped the clock, and I was like, wow, you've got to be kidding me with this.
Yeah.
The fact that happened. But again, though, we're not discussing the strategy. If the Raiders do what any competent football team would do, which is don't lose that game when
Don't give up 50 yards in 10 seconds. That's all you have to do.
Yeah,
with the clock running, another team has no timeouts.
And
how do you lose?
And so even if they had scored the touchdown there, if there was a minute left on the clock instead of 20 seconds, and Ryan Fitzpatrick makes that play, now they're at the 25-yard line with like 40 seconds left or 45 seconds left. They could still score that touchdown at that point. So, you can't really go right when your defense is that bad.
And when you make such a colossal blunder to commit a face mask, a blatant face mask, right? Like, it's not even a whoops, we accidentally grabbed his face. We grabbed his face mask.
Also, you got to give Ryan Fitzpatrick some credit. That was some classic gritty Ryan Fitzpatrick type of crap where he's getting his head unscrewed, pulled this way while he's throwing it over here, and somehow he got the ball to the receiver downfield.
Who's left wide open.
Yeah, because they ran cover 2 for some reason.
Yeah, and of course Fitzpatrick was only in the game because he's apparently the Dolphins' closer. So it's a weird situation down there in Miami right now.
What are the Dolphins doing? What is this?
It works this week. It works this week, so
but they could have won by 25 points instead of 1 or 2 if they just had Fitzpatrick play the whole time.
The Steelers beat the Colts. Browns found a way to lose to the Jets. And so the Ravens have leapfrogged both the Colts and the Browns in the standings. They're now sitting at the number 6 spot and there are 5 teams right now competing for 4 available playoff spots. You got the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Colts. And one of them is going to be left out. We'll find out who that is this Sunday. We're going to have a really interesting Sunday of football on our hands. I think there was one. Oh, yeah. And then Alvin Kamara, 6 rushing touchdowns. Tied the NFL record. And did me absolutely no good for fantasy football. It was so sad.
All 4 leagues that I'm in, the Alvin Kamara performance was in the 3rd place game, not the championship game.
Wasn't even in the 3rd place game for my DeMatha faculty league. It was in like our 5th or 7th place game, I think, or 5th or 7th place game. So, yeah. But still a great game for him. Could have been 7 rushing touchdowns. Thanks, Sean Payton.
It could have been 7 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown if Drew Brees didn't underthrow him on that pass.
That's true. So, I hope he wears those Christmas shoes for the rest of his career. The red and green looked good on him. Real quick, go through our best and worst of Week 16. I already mentioned that Dwayne Haskins was the worst quarterback. The best was Tom Brady, and only 1/2 of work.
Tom Brady had the highest downward adjustment to his number because he played the Lions.
Yeah, and he still was the best. So he was really good.
Even with just 1/2 of football and getting that discount to his performance, he was still the number 1 guy. So that's how lights out he was.
Yep. The best running back of the week by both total and rushing DYAR was Alvin Kamara. The worst was Salvon Ahmed of the Miami Dolphins. The best wide receiver of the week was Devontae Adams. Number 2 is our boy Nelson Aguilar. And the worst of the week was Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy.
Do we do mailbag?
Oh yeah, we do have some mailbag questions from Sean Kennedy, one of our listeners. First one is, what is more likely, Dwayne Haskins being signed to another NFL team or becoming a used car salesman? That's really mean, Sean, and it looks like there's at least one team that actually is interested in him, so I am going to guess that he's going to be signed by another NFL team, even though he probably shouldn't be. That said, ultimately, I hope that he does figure it out. I want players to succeed. I want players to work hard, to do well. I hope that this can be a learning experience. I haven't seen anything from him so far that would suggest that he's capable of learning, but some people do learn, and you never really know when it's going to be. And it's not always preceded by a sign of their ability to learn. So he could. Hopefully he does.
We're talking about his ability to learn, right? He's learning the hard way.
Oh, absolutely.
You see, the thing is, I would root for him to find success if he hadn't proven himself to be an unequivocal douchebag. And that's what he is. He's not just an immature, guy. He's a douche. I mean, he's behaved in a way that resembles a total douchebag. So, sorry, don't care.
That people can change, though. I believe that people can change.
Okay, and if he changes, great. But as of right now, I'm not pulling for him.
No, that's perfectly fair. Sean also asks, which unfortunate NFC East team will be representing that sorry division in the playoffs, and does that team have any chance of winning a playoff game? We'll be talking about our predictions in a moment. That'll pretty much tell everybody who we think will win the NFC East. As for whether that team has a chance of winning a playoff game, I think most of us probably would have said the Seahawks didn't have a chance of winning a playoff game when they won the NFC West with a 7-9 record, and much to Eric's chagrin, Beastquake happened. So, yes, the winner of the NFC East does have a chance. If the Cowboys end up winning it, they're heating up a little bit. They could potentially win a game. Washington's defense is really good, and if the offense can avoid mistakes, Washington is capable of winning a game. Obviously, some of it depends on who they end up getting matched up against. There are some teams that I wouldn't give Washington any chance of beating, but there are also teams in the NFC side of things that I think Washington could potentially win if things swing their way.
Yeah, and the last few weeks, we've seen the Giants and the football team beat playoff teams.
Yeah.
So it's not like it can't happen.
Yep.
And we've seen it happen. The Washington beat the Steelers, and the Giants beat the Seahawks. Both of those teams are going to be in the tournament.
Yep.
So they could easily win another game like that. It's just a matter of will they. Probably won't, but that's why they play the game.
Yep.
And, I mean, the NFC East winner is going to be playing an NFC wildcard team. Like, none of the teams in that mix are exactly crushing it right now. Like, the Rams have shown they can lose to anybody any given week, and their quarterback's going to be out.
Yep. Same with the Cardinals.
It's not like they'll be better.
The
Cardinals have been a mess.
Same with the Bears if they get in. Same with
Bears.
I forget who else.
I mean, the Bucks are probably going to be the 5 seed.
Yeah, the Bucks are going to be the 5. That's true. Yeah, I mean, the Bucks are almost locked into the 5 seed. I think they are actually, aren't they?
No, if they have to win this week or have the Rams lose.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's either beat the Falcons or the Rams lose to the Cardinals, because the Rams have the tiebreaker over them because they beat Tampa Bay a few weeks back.
And the Bucks have played some weird games, but they seem to be clicking recently. I don't think that I would give Washington much of a chance of beating the Bucks right now.
Yeah, I think the Bucks had the late bye week this year, which helped them. They played much better coming off of that bye week because they hit their slide the few weeks before the bye week, and then since then, now they haven't really played anybody, but they've beaten the teams they were supposed to. So
I will say though, if Washington has a quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over all the time, I think they could give the Bucks some trouble, because like the Buccaneers, they lost to the Rams because the Rams defense just feasted that game. So like if Washington's defense gets after Tom Brady a little bit, they might hang around. I don't think they get rolled by any means.
Yeah, I agree.
His final mailbag question is, who is your playoff dark horse, and which team will completely collapse in the playoffs? I think that's a little bit of a difficult question to answer because so many spots are still up for grabs. Half of the playoff spots between the two conferences are being fought for by 10 teams. So I would say that if I had to pick a team that's a dark horse, you're probably looking at one of the teams that's on the bubble right now and could be eliminated, could get in. So I've got almost a 50-50 chance of picking a team that's not even going to end up being in the tournament as far as picking a dark horse. But I would say the Ravens right now. I think that they've been heating up quite a bit. They should beat the Bengals, which will ensure that they make it into the tournament. And the way they've been playing recently, with the defense has been playing well. The running game is really coming along. Lamar seems to be getting back to form a little bit. I think that they're capable of beating just about anybody right now.
Looking at the NFC, I don't see any dark horses. Like, all the teams that are good, like we know they're good. All the teams that are not as good, but making the playoffs, we know aren't really going to do much of anything. Like, whoever wins the NFC East probably isn't advancing. And then the Rams are going down the tubes. The Bears aren't very good, and the Cardinals aren't very good. So, just like who to pick as a dark horse? Like, there really isn't one. The team that I think is going to collapse out of the NFC, I think the Seahawks are most likely to go down. Their defense is bad.
Their defense has been playing really well recently, though.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
they couldn't have gotten worse.
The addition of Carlos Dunlap has given them a good pass rush, and Jamal Adams being healthy has been a big deal too. He's a difference maker. So they are playing better, but their offense, by contrast, is playing a little bit worse than it was earlier in the year when their defense was particularly horrible. So they've kind of met in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't doubt Russell Wilson. I don't see, I agree. I don't see any dark horse in the NFC because the teams that we think are good are the Packers, the Saints, and the Bucks. We still give them credit as a team that could make a run. Nobody would look at the Bucks and call them a dark horse. They've got Tom Brady on their team, right. So that's never a dark horse by rule. But I also don't think that the Bucks are primed for a collapse because I think they're going to at least win one playoff game, and then possibly go to Lambeau and play the Packers, who they already thrashed. So that could be an interesting rematch. But I think the Packers are playing good football. Aaron Rodgers is MVP level player right now. The Saints are getting back to what they do. I don't see them having a big clunker in the postseason. The AFC is the more interesting because you've got 8 teams vying for 7 spots, some of which have already locked them up. I guess if I was to pick a dark horse here, I would be inclined to agree with Corey and go with the Ravens because I feel like the Ravens are kind of under the radar a little bit right now. They had a humiliating defeat to the Chiefs early in the season. They had a stretch where they looked like they weren't even going to make the playoffs at all. And now they're not only winning games again, but they're looking like the Ravens of 2019 to some extent, which makes them a dangerous team, especially because they don't have to deal with the pressure of being the top seed and being the 14-2 team in the bracket this year. They get to kind of get back to being what made them a Super Bowl winner back in the 2010s, back in 2012, where they were the under-the-radar team that snuck up on the Broncos and the Patriots. And I think they're going to be in sort of that position. A team that I think might collapse is a hard word to use because it's a single elimination event, but I do not trust the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't.
Yeah, their game against the Falcons makes me a little bit nervous in, picking them to win it all, before we even get started with the tournament.
So they have lost, or they have failed to cover the spread 7 straight games. Now, you might say, oh, well, that's gambling, who cares? But the spread is based off of what people's perception of you is, and they have not met up to that perception in almost 2 months. They've almost lost to the Raiders, who are now being exposed as a mediocre team. They lost to them already earlier in the season. They damn near lost to the Dolphins, even though Tua was certainly not playing great. They could have lost to the Saints, even though Drew Brees was coming off of 11 broken ribs and had probably the worst start to a game of his life. I mean, they just haven't had compelling wins. And yet somehow the Chiefs still have this vibe of invincibility because they've got Patrick Mahomes.
And then this past weekend, they barely beat the Falcons, and it was on a missed field goal by a guy who hasn't been missing field goals all season, and which it sounds like a Chiefs player may have just barely tipped it, but still, either way,
and they
came
also
that close
got
to
away
overtime against the Falcons.
And Mahomes also got away with throwing what likely would have been a game-sealing interception
Yep.
because the dude couldn't hold on to the ball.
Yep.
So, I mean, I feel like the Chiefs have a little bit of, like, Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders has talked about them kind of resembling the 2011 Green Bay Packers, where they were coming off a Super Bowl win. The quarterback was Super Bowl MVP that prior year. He comes back and he's having an MVP caliber season. The team is going to probably go 15-1 or 14-2, depending on what happens this week in the irrelevant game that's going on where Mahomes isn't even going to play. And they have this air of invincibility despite the fact that they've won a lot of close games down the stretch. And what happened to that Packers team? They got punched in the mouth by the Giants and got blown out at home. So it's not like it's inconceivable that whoever the Chiefs have to play could come into Arrowhead and beat them. It's happened before.
Yeah. I think for me, I think that basically giving the players a rest this week for the Steelers is going to help them to kind of come out a little more gassed up in the playoffs. So I'm not going to pick them to collapse, but even if they did lose, I don't think it would be quite as surprising as to most people as like the Chiefs losing, simply because the Steelers lost 3 straight games after starting 11-0. At this point, they've sort of been exposed, so to speak. I think I might say the Bills only it's one of those things. They were in the playoffs last year, so this isn't a situation where they haven't been here before, and so it might just be too big for them. But you look at the Ravens last year, Lamar had played in a playoff game before. He played to and lost the Chargers in his rookie season. So it wasn't a brand new situation for him. But it was brand new in the sense that they were so good last year, whereas when they made it in his rookie season, they kind of barely snuck in. The Bills...
Well, not even sneaking in that year. It was the Steelers collapsing down the stretch.
Right. This year, or last year rather, the Bills, I think, were they the 5 or the 6 seed? I forget. Tennessee was the 6 seed, right?
Yeah,
because they ended up playing Baltimore in the divisional round. So Buffalo was the 5 seed, but they sort of snuck in that same way. It was mostly the defense. It wasn't really the offense being really good last year. This year, the defense has regressed a little bit compared to 2019. The offense has been outstanding, and I worry that may be a bit of, a lot of pressure for a young quarterback like Josh Allen to try and live up to. So if I had to pick a team who I think could potentially collapse, it would probably be the Bills.
I think in the AFC, it's wide open. There's probably going to be a team that wins 11 games and isn't going to the playoffs. Like, that doesn't happen all that often.
I don't know if I would say probably, because I doubt that all 5 of these teams that are vying for those 4 wildcard spots are going to win. I don't think all of them are going to win.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what happens. But a team's going to win 10 games and miss the playoffs. Then that's still pretty good. I think anybody can beat anybody in the AFC, including Kansas City. I think Buffalo is better than Kansas City. Anyway. Like y'all have said, Kansas City, they've been slipping lately. They kind of remind me of the Steelers from about a month ago, like the team that's just winning every single game, but barely winning. And they look like they're, about to hit some sort of major disappointment that would expose their warts. So I think the team to beat and the team I want the Ravens to avoid the most is Buffalo.
The thing about, to Corey's point about the Bills, I think there's something to be said about a team potentially growing accustomed to blowing people out. And that's what the Ravens did last year, where down the stretch they were kicking people's asses by 28, 35 points a lot of weeks. And that's kind of where the Bills are now. Yeah, the Bills are kind of there right now. They just stomped the Patriots. They stomped the 49ers a few weeks back. they didn't stop the Steelers, but they beat them pretty handily. It was not really
Yeah.
a particularly close game. They were clearly the better team. And so I just worry that, you get into a playoff game, you're going to be playing a good team. It's the playoffs, unless you're playing, the NFC East winner, and they don't have that luxury. It's very possible that they could get punched in the mouth. And since they've maybe grown accustomed to just whooping the crap out of people, they might be a little shook by that. That's kind of what happened to Baltimore last year, where we saw first possession, the Ravens had the ball, they were driving right down the field. It looked like, same old business as usual, and then something goes wrong, and it was all downhill from there. And we actually saw that, to harken back to another team that was dominant like that. You guys might not remember the 2010 New England Patriots. They went 14-2. They won like 12 straight games or something like that. They were blowing everybody off the field. And their first possession against the Jets, they're rolling right down the field like usual. And then Tom Brady makes a bad throw on a screen pass and he gets intercepted. And then they were not the same. Like, something just broke at that point, and they were unable to compete with an inferior team. So, I mean, there could be something to that for the Bills, and I don't think you can do anything to prevent it. It's just a nature. When you get to a situation where you're that much better than everybody else, you kind of have to get accustomed to grinding again, and perhaps they've lost that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's my concern. So
I think that applies to Kansas City more than Buffalo, though.
Yeah, but like I said, the Chiefs have been playing in close games, which is another problem. It's kind of a paradox because we're talking about, you don't want to be blowing everybody out, because then if that changes, you might freak out and not handle it. But then you also don't. You should be
playing close games against inferior teams.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you got to strike a little bit of a balance. And it's not even. I'm not even saying that blowing people out is bad. It's just a matter of how do you handle it when it's not going that way, and that remains to be seen with the Bills. But I don't quite have the same concerns, just because I think that it's still such a scrappy team. Even if they've had success, they've been so crappy for so long that it's like they're not just going to wake up one day, I don't think, and just be like, "Hey, we're the greatest team ever." It's now.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the last time they won the division, their quarterback wasn't even born yet. So.
Yep.
I also felt good for them though when they got to blow out the Patriots this week, because it's funny, they're the first team to sweep New England in a division since 2000.
Yep.
So pre-Tom Brady. And like I talked about this with Corey over the when we were playing Call of Duty and we were watching the game and we were talking over the headsets or whatever. And I made the point that during the Tom Brady era, the Patriots got beat by the Dolphins sometimes. They got beat by the Jets sometimes. They never lost to the Bills. They beat the Bills every time. Like, the Bills might have won 3 games over them in that 20-year stretch.
Right.
So the Bills were quietly the most victimized team by the New England Patriots.
And they're the ones to sweep them as soon as Tom is gone.
And they crushed them.
Yep.
On Monday. It was not even competitive. So good for them.
Yep. So let's go ahead and get into our Week 16 game picks. A lot of big games this week, along with some games that really don't matter hardly at all. We'll start with the Falcons at the Buccaneers. I'm a little bit lower on confidence in the Bucs this week. I've got 8 points on them. Eric and Evan have 13 and 14 respectively. And I'll tell you, the only reason that I'm a little bit lower in confidence is because the Buccaneers don't have all that much to play for, and so they may end up not, having their starters out there for the full game, even if it remains competitive in the first half. I know Eric mentioned earlier they're not officially locked into that top wild card spot yet, but it's looking pretty unlikely that the Rams are going to win this week, considering Goff and Kupp are both out. And the Rams are going to have some guy from the AF as their starting quarterback. I think that the Falcons could potentially take advantage of that, especially given they just played the Chiefs really close. And I get that the way they lost could be devastating, especially to a team that's already not good like the Falcons aren't. But they also weren't expected to even be competitive in that game. So that's got to give them a little bit of juice going into a divisional game in the final week of the season to try and salvage something for the year. So I think that the Falcons do have that chance, especially if the Bucs end up not going guns a-blazing for 60 minutes.
I mean, Jameis Winston isn't quarterbacking the Buccaneers. Like, this was a Week 17 matchup last year as well. And it went to overtime, and, like, wasn't it the first play of overtime? Jameis Winston throws his record-breaking 7th pick six of the season.
Yeah.
And 30th interception.
Yeah, but like I said, Brady might not be out there for the whole game.
Yeah, but Jameis isn't going to be out there for any part of the game. So I think the Buccaneers roll. The Falcons are terrible. I think the Chiefs kind of played down to their competition on Sunday when they played the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers, they see like, oh, we can clinch a date with an NFC East team. Sign us up for that. So, yeah, Buccaneers roll the Falcons.
Yeah, everything I've read seems to indicate that the Bucs don't have any intention of pulling starters. They plan to play to win, and rightfully so, because sure, the Rams, they're pretty undermanned, and there's a pretty good chance they're going to lose to the Cardinals. But if you're the Bucs, you got to figure anything can happen, and you'd rather ride into the playoffs off of a win anyway. So it seems like they don't plan on benching anybody, which means that, you know, that doesn't mean I think the Falcons have much of a chance. The Falcons had their chance to catch the Bucs napping 2 weeks ago. They jumped out to a big lead. They blew it, which is totally on brand. I don't think the Bucs are going to let that happen again. And even if they did, the Falcons would just blow it again because, again, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Evan is lone wolfing, picking the Giants to beat the Cowboys. He's got 3 points on them. Eric's got 2 on the boys. I've got 6 on Dallas. So, Evan, why the Giants?
This is a crazy pick. I'm behind. Need to, do some unconventional stuff. And the Giants are a little better. I still think Dallas is abysmal, despite the fact that they rolled the Eagles on Sunday. So, Giants at home in a squeaker. So I'm holding my nose and picking the Giants.
Well, your unconventional stuff has gotten you a little bit back in the fray. You've closed the gap on me recently.
Should pick the Chargers more.
Apparently. Not going to do that, though. I'm taking the Cowboys. Their defense is playing a little bit better. Certainly good enough, I think, to handle Danny Dimes and the Giants' offense. And Andy Dalton has been playing pretty well over the past 2 or 3 weeks as well. I think that their offense is clicking enough to beat the Giants. So I'm going with them with, moderate confidence.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are playing pretty good football the last couple of weeks. I mean, they beat the Eagles, which I didn't think they were necessarily going to do that with the way Jalen Hurts had been playing.
Yeah.
And I realized that they beat the crap out of the Bengals, which doesn't sound like it's much, but nobody else is doing that right now.
Nope.
I mean, the Texans got beat by the Bengals. The Steelers got beat by the Bengals. The only team that's really clubbed them since Joe Burrow went down was the Cowboys. So, they're playing a bit above water, whereas I think the Giants are kind of, ever since that Seahawks upset, they're kind of trending in the wrong direction. They didn't compete against the Cardinals at all. They lost again to the Ravens. They didn't even really show up. It was just a non-game. I don't think Daniel Jones is good at all. I don't know what their situation was with him. I'm assuming he's playing. That might actually be to their detriment. They were completely uncompetitive against the Browns. And this team is just not good and not playing nearly well enough to have me pick them. I think the Cowboys right now are a better team.
So you don't have faith in Freddie Kitchens and Jason Garrett on offense?
No, and I think we need the coronation of Joe Judge as this, next great coach of the New York Football Giants, a little premature.
I mean, the Giants, did they make a mistake? Is it that they made the mistake of firing Tom Coughlin, or just the guys they've hired to replace him have been just?
I think it's the latter. I think like they were justified to can Coughlin when they did. He hadn't produced any winning seasons in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it was time for them to move on.
Yeah.
And they hired Ben McAdoo or somebody else.
Ben McAdoo.
Yep.
I don't want to say Bob McAdoo. Bob McAdoo's a Hall of Fame basketball player.
Oh, no goodness.
It was also not Jim Bob Cooter. That was another team.
The Detroit Lions and Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah.
The Jets at the Patriots. Evan and I both have the Jets with 1 point. Eric is lone wolfing, taking the Patriots with 4. And I can't fault Eric for that pick because honestly, the Patriots probably still should win this game. But the Patriots just look done, man. I mean, they weren't competitive at all against the Bills, and I know the Bills are good, but good Lord, like Cam didn't look good. They brought in Jarrett Stidham. He's not any better. Their run game has not been getting a whole lot done lately. Their defense hasn't been that great, and the Jets are just like they're playing competitive football right now for whatever reason. They're playing loose. They have nothing to lose. Like literally, if they lose this week, they can't get the number 1 pick, and if they win this week, they can't get the number 3 pick. They're locked into the number 2 pick right now, so it literally doesn't matter what happens. They have no incentive to lose. They have no incentive to win, so they're just going to go and play. And I think that gives them an advantage in this game.
I completely agree with you, Corey. As crazy as that sounds, I think the Patriots they're just ready to pack up and go home. Like they've shown that they're just done and they want to go on vacation. The Jets seem like they're like, oh, we're playing football. Like, we finally figured out how to do this funny shaped ball. So the Jets, they seem looser and like they're having fun, whereas the Patriots are like, how much longer? So.
Yeah, those are all good points, and I thought about it. The Jets are, seemingly enjoying themselves while winning football games the last couple of weeks, whereas the Patriots look like they're ready to fold it up. But I haven't picked the Jets all year, so
understandably,
why start now? I mean, I don't know, and I think part of this was, I still think of Cam Newton as reasonably effective against bad teams. But I don't even know if he's going to play. I couldn't even find anything to tell me who's starting at quarterback for them. They might roll with Stidham, which, God help me if they do, because that guy can't play at all.
Advantage Jets.
Yeah, that's definitely advantage Jets if he's playing. But, I think just inertia said, okay, it's still the Patriots, it's still Bill Belichick, and maybe he's going to have these guys.
Belichick's not playing.
I understand he's not playing, but he's coaching, and I think
he was coaching this past week against the Bills.
The Bills are good, though.
I know.
Like, really good. Like, the Jets aren't. So, I don't know. They've already met once this year. I don't really feel compelled to defend picking against the Jets. I feel like you can justify it no matter what. So, that's what I'm going to do. They're the Jets.
Sam Darnold is prone to seeing ghosts when he plays against Bill Belichick, so.
Yeah, he is. So, there you go. Perfect.
There you go.
Thank you for making my argument for me, Corey.
The Vikings are playing in Detroit against the Lions. Really not that interesting of a game. Both teams are out of the playoffs, but I have relatively high confidence in the Vikings. I put 11 on them. Eric's got 7 and Evan's got 5. I'm guessing that the main reason you guys went lower confidence is because Dalvin Cook won't be playing. Dalvin Cook got really unfortunate news that his father unexpectedly passed away this week, and so he's going to go back to Florida to spend time with his family and just end his season a little bit early. I'm pretty high on the Vikings anyway this week against the Lions because I saw that game against the Buccaneers, and I get that it's the Buccaneers and the Buccaneers are good and the Vikings aren't particularly good, but the Buccaneers only need 1.5 of football to absolutely lay waste to Detroit. I'm pretty sure the Vikings are capable of doing that over the course of a whole game, especially the way that Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson have been clicking with Kirk Cousins over the past few games. I mean, the two of them, they give this offense in the passing game such a lift. They're so good, and they work together so well. I don't have really any doubt in my mind about the outcome of this game.
Somebody should have drafted those guys in fantasy. I'm not feeling the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings, they just seem prone to not winning. Like, stuff.
I mean, they've certainly done a lot more not winning than they have done winning this season. They're 6-9.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, the Lions are horrible, perennially horrible. But the Vikings, I don't trust them. Like, I can't put a whole lot of confidence in a team that didn't they lose to the Bears recently?
The Bears have been playing well. They've scored 30+ in 4 straight games for the first time since the 60s? I think it was since 65.
I mean, yeah, I don't trust the Vikings. That's really all there is to say. I feel like Cousins is going to turn the ball over. They're not going to have Dalvin Cook, who's, I mean, one of their best players on offense. This seems like a bit of a trap game. If it's possible for a team that's out of the playoffs to have a trap game.
I don't know that it is, but
I mean, again, this is an irrelevant game. Doesn't affect any playoff predictions or seedings or anything like that. But I mean, it's a division game. Division games are always a little weird, and the Vikings defense is pretty bad. So if Matt Stafford's able to play, he's the better quarterback on the field. So that's something. It's not everything, obviously, because I'm still picking the Vikings with relatively high confidence. I'm not willing to dump a ton of them on Minnesota because I don't think they're very good. And it's a divisional game against a team that, has won more games than they probably should have. Like they've snuck up on some teams and beaten them. They beat the Cardinals early in the year when they looked like they were dead and done. So, I mean, I wouldn't completely sleep on them, and I wasn't going to get caught up in the moment and say, "Oh my God, the Lions are so bad because of what happened against the Bucs." I'm like, it's one game. So I just had to keep that in mind. I wasn't going to overreact to that absolute boat racing that happened on Saturday.
I mean, but that was to be expected, though. The Lions are awful.
Yeah, sure.
The Steelers are playing at Cleveland. We've all got the Browns with medium confidence. I've got 7. Eric's got 8. Evan's got 6. I honestly had much higher confidence in the Browns initially because we already know the Steelers are not going to be putting many of their starters out there. Mason Rudolph is going to start at quarterback. However, the Browns had a couple of positive COVID tests early this week, an assistant coach and a practice squad player, and they had to shut down their facility today. And so there's still a little bit of a question up in the air about who's going to be available. Will there be more positive tests? What's going to happen with this game? We had the incident this past week where the day on Saturday, a number of the wide receivers were in a jacuzzi together, in a hot tub together, and one of the players had COVID, and because of the close contact, their top 4 wide receivers were all ruled out of the game. Those guys are on pace to be cleared and taken off the COVID reserve list tomorrow, Thursday. But there's still some question about what's going to happen there, and so because of that, I wound up dropping my confidence down quite a bit. Initially, I was up around 15 points for this game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was on 8, regardless of the coronavirus-related incidents, because we're talking about the Cleveland Browns. I mean,
fair enough.
This is a win and you're in situation to make the playoffs for the first time since 2002, and if they lose, there's a pretty good chance they're not going to get in. So, why would I feel super confident that they're going to win this, even with them playing the Steelers backups? I'm still so hesitant because it's the Browns, man. I'm not going to commit.
I figure there out of the 5 games that are going to determine those last 4 spots in the AFC, the 2 teams that are most likely to lose are the Browns against the Steelers and the Dolphins against the Bills, right? The Dolphins are already ahead of the Browns, so if they lose, even if both of them lose, the Browns are below the Dolphins, and all the Colts have to do is beat the Jaguars, the 1-14 Jaguars, and they leapfrogged the Bills, and there you go. So that you're absolutely right, and that's the situation. I think that this is a different Browns team than we've seen in the past. I think this is a Browns team that is capable of rising to that occasion.
I mean, they just lost to the Jets, so there's that.
Without their top 4 wide receivers.
That shouldn't matter.
I understand that, but they bounced it up because they literally decided we're going to be the greatest show on turf with no receivers, and they refused to run the ball, even though that's always been the strength of their team.
If I felt that it was inexcusable for the Browns to lose to the Jets, I'd be picking the Patriots to beat the Jets with at least 8 confidence points.
It's inexcusable to lose to the Jets. That's
they shouldn't have lost that game. That was a bad loss.
Axiomatic.
Maybe you should switch your Jets pick then.
No, I'm not switching my Jets pick because I think that picking the Jets is a crazy pick, and I'm behind. So, that's why
it's not going to do you a whole lot of good when I'm also picking the Jets.
Well, I didn't know you were going to pick the Jets because I thought it was a crazy pick.
1 point also doesn't do you that much good.
Picking the Jets to win.
Not the guy in first place, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Who in their right mind is going to pick the Jets to win? I got the Browns here. I was actually kind of leaning Steelers, to be honest, but with Roethlisberger not playing and Mason Rudolph playing in his place, Mason Rudolph showed last year that he's a mess.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Ben Roethlisberger was playing, if I knew that the starters were going to play, I would probably pick the Steelers to win this game. The problem is the Steelers have not had a real bye week all season. Their bye week got moved to week 4 because of what happened with the Titans' COVID cases, but that wasn't really a bye week for the Steelers. They didn't have to play a game on Sunday, but they were preparing all week as if they were going to have a game. So while they had they've had their one Sunday without getting, the crap pounded out of them, out of their bodies, they have not had a week off mentally all season. I think that Mike Tomlin is going to give as many of his players that week off, that mental week off, as well as physical week off, as he can get away with while still fielding a team, which means I don't think we're going to see Deontay Johnson out there. I don't think we're going to see James Conner or Benny Snell out there. I don't think we're going to see Chase Claypool or Juju. I don't think that we're going to see Watt. I don't think we're going to see hardly any of their defensive starters.
They have to play somebody.
Well, right.
They have 53 guys.
They've got backups, and I think that those are going to be the main guys. I think that they'll have some of their starters available, ready to go in case of injury, but I think it's going to be all backup starting. I don't think any of their 22 main starters are going to start, and if they do, it's going to be guys that they can afford to lose, to injury.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, and I think we mostly agree on this game. I still feel like the Steelers are the better team. They're better coached than the Browns, although the Browns made a huge coaching upgrade this season over last season.
You mean the guy Eric thought was going to coach of the year wasn't a good coach?
Yeah. Coach of the year, Freddie Kitchens.
Coach of the year, Freddie Kitchens.
There are some things that we will never live down, and that's one thing that Eric I don't think is ever going to fully live down.
Yes. I see. The thing is, I was so damn reluctant and downplaying the pick as soon as I said it on the show. I was like, somebody's got to win this, and why not him? Because I thought the Browns would make the playoffs. They didn't, and he didn't. So that's where we are.
He wasn't even the coach of the Browns when the playoffs were about to start.
Nope.
Nah, he was dismissed quickly and with prejudice.
We're all very heavy on the Ravens beating the Bengals. We've all got 15 confidence points on the road team. The Ravens, they're not in a huge amount of risk of missing the playoffs right now, but they're certainly in more risk of missing it than the Titans and the Dolphins are. So they have to win this game. We know that they're going to go out there and play 100% for 60 minutes to make sure that they wrap up that playoff spot. So I don't think there's any doubt in our minds about that game. Anything in particular you want to highlight with that matchup, Evan?
The Ravens should win. They should cruise, frankly. And if the Ravens lose and miss the playoffs, they don't deserve to go to the playoffs. Like teams that blow games against a terrible Bengals team, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs. I'm sorry. So I mean, that's just real talk.
See 2017 Ravens for reference.
Exactly. You don't deserve to go to the playoffs. Can't lose to the Bengals.
The Dolphins are playing in Buffalo. We've all got the Bills, but I've got low confidence. I've got 2 points compared to Evan and Eric's 10 points that they've put on Buffalo. And the reason here is that I think Buffalo is probably going to figure that with the Steelers resting their players, the Browns should win, which means the Bills would be locked into the number 2 seed. Not to mention the difference between the 2 and the 3 seed is minimal this year, considering only one team gets a bye week now. And you look at the way the Bills are playing it very close to the vest as far as their plans with their starters this week. Same way they did last year when they were locked into the 5 seed in the AFC playoff picture going into week 17. They wound up putting Josh Allen in the starting unit out there for one drive. Allen played 5 plays, and then they put in all their backups for the rest of the game. And I think that there's a distinct possibility they do that. And if the Bills put their backups in, the Dolphins win and get in. Now, there is also, I'm still picking the Bills because I think that the fact that it's a divisional game against another team that could make the playoffs makes a difference. Last year, the Bills, I think they were playing the Jets, and they wound up losing that game. But the Jets were not making the playoffs. So it wasn't like they were facing a team that, by losing to them, it could come back to haunt them. Maybe they feel that way here. But I also think that the Bills may decide we don't want to show the Dolphins what our game plan will be if we have to face them in the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Dolphins have to win. They're going to show us their game plan, so it might actually benefit us to glean what we can from this without giving up anything, lose this game, and potentially face them in the playoffs. So there's that chance the Bills end up trying to knock the Dolphins out and win the game, but not enough of a chance that I'm going to put a lot of points on them.
Corey, I think all of what you're saying is, logical and makes sense, but it's a little bit too galaxy brain. I think you're overthinking it.
I very well may be. I am a serial overthinker. I love to overthink.
I feel like the Bills are the better team than the Dolphins. I feel like the Bills still have something to play for. You'd rather be the 2 seed than the 3 seed, even though it doesn't mean the difference between a bye week, but you would theoretically be playing a worse team in the playoffs as the 2 seed than the 3 seed.
I mean, not necessarily when the 4 wildcard teams are all probably going to have the same record.
Yeah, but I mean, theoretically, though, theoretically. And looking up the weather, again, the weather comes into play. Miami, going up to Buffalo, 50% chance of snow showers on Sunday afternoon. So, kind of don't want to pick that team, the team from Florida going to play in possible snow.
Yeah. So I do think the Bills are going to play to win this game. Josh Allen indicated that that's their plan, is that they're not going to take this one off or, be benching starters or anything like that. Plus, I think there is value in getting the 2 seed versus the 3, and I think it's pretty significant because, sure, you don't get a bye week, but the 3 seed is probably going to have to play the divisional round game on the road, in all likelihood, because the 2 is probably going to beat the 7. The 2 seed guarantees a divisional round at home if you win your wild card matchup, because you're not going to play the 1. So I think there is a benefit to staying home. And I think that that's something that the Bills will chase. And I don't think that they're going to count on the Steelers taking care of business for them by laying down. So I think that they will go all out to win this game. I don't think that they're going to worry about, let's not reveal too much against the Dolphins so that we can come back next week and kick their ass if we get matched up against them. I think they're just going to want to send them out, right away. And I think there are some opportunities for the Bills in the wild card round to potentially get a better matchup than the Dolphins anyway. Like, if they play Cleveland, I'm sorry. The Browns are not beating the Bills. That's not happening.
I think
So
the Browns have a better chance than the Dolphins. I would much rather face the Dolphins than the Browns in the playoffs if I'm the Bills.
No way. No way. No way.
Much rather. For sure.
No way. The Browns still have a negative point differential. They're kind of a fraudulent team. I mean,
they still have a negative point differential?
Yeah.
How is it still negative now?
Because they're the Browns. That's what they do.
I mean, they got blasted by the Ravens in their first matchup, and they got blasted by the Steelers in their first matchup. Did they get blasted by anybody else? Like all their wins were squeakers?
A lot of their wins were squeakers, yeah.
Look at their
I'm just saying, I'm not a big believer. I'm happy for the Browns, and I hope they make the playoffs, and I think they will, but that's not a team that I think is going to last long. I think they're a one-and-out type of team, and good for them for making it. It's certainly a good step in the right direction, but I think if the Bills get matched up against them, they would be feeling pretty good.
Their two wins over the Bengals are by a total of 8 points. They beat the Texans by 3, the Eagles by 5, the Jags by 2, the Titans by 6. Speakers.
We're all pretty heavy on the Seahawks against the 49ers. I've got 13 points on Seattle. Evan and Eric have 11 points each. Seattle is still playing for something. They can potentially move up to the number 2 seed. In fact, they could potentially become the number 1 seed if both the Packers and the Saints lose this week. They have the tiebreaker over Green Bay. So the Seahawks are definitely going to play to win this game just on the off chance that both of those things happen. It's unlikely that Green Bay and New Orleans, that either of them will lose, much less that both of them would lose. But I think that they're going to be playing all out to get that done. And, as I mentioned earlier, the Seahawks defense has been playing pretty well of late. I know the offense hasn't been as good, but I think that they should be able to win this game. Not to mention Deebo Samuel has been ruled out for the 49ers, and he's been a pretty big part of their offense lately.
Has he, though? He spends more time out of the lineup than in it.
When he's on the field, he's been a big part of their offense, and he's been on the field for the past few weeks.
No, he hasn't. He's been on the shelf the last couple of weeks because he's on my fantasy bench and he has not played.
I've had him in my lineup. I've had him in my lineup for the past few weeks. He got hurt during this past week's game.
I don't know if that's right, dude.
Or maybe it was the week before that he got hurt. No, pretty sure it was this week.
He probably got hurt that game too.
He got hurt against the team. And he hasn't played since.
I had him in my lineup this week, and he scored 3.7 points.
Oh, that's a whopping total.
Well, he got hurt early. Goodness. He scored 17.8 the week before that. And then the week before that he scored he scored 16.9 against Washington. And then in week 15, sorry, did I say Deebo Samuel?
Yes. That's what we're talking about.
I meant Brandon Ayuk. I was referring to Brandon Ayuk, not Deebo.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
I get the two mixed up because they're basically the same player.
Except one plays and one doesn't.
Apparently. Yeah. Well, this week neither is playing, I guess. So, unless Deebo's back. So,
oh, goodness
regardless,
gracious.
The point is the Seahawks should clean the floor with San Francisco. Arizona playing at LA.
I want to say before we move on, I want to say about the Seahawks game. I'm a little concerned that I put too many points on Seattle.
I'm not.
They seem a little shaky to me. Remember, this game is in Arizona, not in San Francisco. And Seattle just has some sort of mental block about playing in that stadium. They just have issues. Weird stuff happens to them, particularly with their kickers, whoever that person might be. So I think they're still haunted by the Malcolm Butler situation that was in that stadium as well. And the 49ers are a team that seems to punch above their weight class. they should be awful, and they hang around against teams that are better than them. The 49ers, despite all of their injuries and the hangover that comes with losing the Super Bowl, they've been okay. So, 11 on the Seahawks, thinking about it now, seems a little much, frankly.
Well, I'm not nervous because the 49ers have C.J. Beathard as their quarterback, so
Okay.
Seahawks are fine.
The guys Beathard's replacing haven't been that great in the first place. So
Yeah, well, they've still been better than he is. The Cardinals are playing at the LA Rams. We've all got the Cardinals with slightly varying confidence. I've got 10 points on Arizona. Eric's got 5. Evan's got 8. Main reason just being that no Goff and no Cup. I think that makes a big difference and swings the advantage in the Cardinals' favor. It's still certainly not a lock that the Cardinals win this game because they've had their own issues this season. But I think that they've got enough talent to beat a Rams team that, quite frankly, hasn't been all that even with those guys on the field. So that's where I'm at with that game.
I mean, the Cardinals. I don't even think the Cardinals are a good team. Like, I think they're an average team. So that means that I think the Rams defense by themselves could make this game competitive. Jared Goff or no. I mean, Jared Goff's not exactly a superstar quarterback anyway. I assume he's better than whatever guy they're bringing in to replace him. Obviously, losing Cooper Kupp is big, and I know the Rams have injuries with their running backs as well. But I'm just not willing to put a ton of confidence on the Cardinals, the way they're playing, especially when they have to go up against Aaron Donald and company. And the Rams are also in a situation where they've got to play to win too. So I'm not selling out on your boy Cliff Kingsbury to get this one done. I think they will, but ultimately, it's still a little up in the air for me.
I still say they win despite Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I gotta take some risks at this point in the season. So I guess the Cardinals, but the key factor is going to be Aaron Donald. But then Goff is out, but he's been playing like crap anyway. So I don't trust either one of these teams at this point. But I guess the Cardinals, their slope downward isn't as steep as the Rams at this point, I'll say.
Colts are hosting the Jaguars. The Colts, they need to win to get in. They are on the outside looking in right now. A win and a Titans loss would give them the AFC South, but they could also win and still miss the playoffs. So they have to win this game. They're coming off of a game in which they blew a 17-point lead, the first time that Mike Tomlin has ever come back from a 17-point deficit as the head coach of the Steelers. But it's the Jaguars. They're 1-14.
I had that as well.
So all three of us have the Colts with 16 confidence points. I don't think there's really a whole lot else we need to talk about with that matchup. So we'll move on to the Titans and the Texans in Houston. I've got very high confidence on the Titans to get the job done. I put 14 on them. Eric has 6 and Evan has 7 on Tennessee. So I'm actually a little bit surprised you guys have such low confidence. Titans are playing pretty good football overall. Ryan Tannehill's been playing well. Derrick Henry is a beast. The Texans have not been good. I picked the Texans to win last week, and look how that turned out against the Bengals. So why so low confidence in the Titans?
Because the Titans just got humiliated on Sunday Night Football. They didn't even show up.
Against a really good Packers team in Green Bay.
I had that as well.
And you and I, we picked the Titans to win that game.
Yeah, we did.
And they
inexplicably. Why?
Yes.
What made you think that?
Because reasons, apparently. We messed up. That's the bottom line is we were wrong, man. We were way wrong about the Titans. And their defense is still terrible.
But we were not the only ones. Get this. Our listeners, our listener, Evan was the only one, not only out of us three, but out of us three and all of our listeners who picked the Packers to win that game.
Oh, we have so many listeners.
So we were all wrong, which means the Titans were worse than we thought. That's what it should tell you.
Or the Packers are better than we gave them credit for, or the cold made a bigger difference than we thought it would, or Devontae Adams is really freaking amazing.
So the Packers, he didn't just show up off the street randomly.
So everything that happened on Sunday had nothing to do with the fact that the Titans aren't actually that good. It was all because the Packers are amazing.
I think they're still a lot better than the Texans.
Yeah, which is why I picked them to beat the Texans, but they struggled to beat them the first time they matched up, and the Texans were just as terrible back then. Maybe they had Will Fuller. That's the only difference.
No,
but it also was not December, which is Derrick Henry's month.
It wasn't Derrick Henry's month on Sunday night. And Derrick Henry also had a hell of a day against the Texans back then, and they still needed overtime to beat them. So, no, I'm not going to put a ton of confidence on a team that cannot play a lick of defense to just waltz in and smoke Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be close. The Titans are the type of team with their defense being so bad, they have to score every single time they have the ball, and their offense isn't capable of doing that no matter how much of a beast Derrick Henry is. That's just not how their offense rolls. And that's why they got annihilated by Green Bay. I think
the Titans are a whole lot better than the Bengals, but, you know.
The Bengals are one of the hottest teams in the league right now.
The Bengals beat the Titans.
Did they?
Yes, that happened.
Really?
Yeah, that happened. And I think Joe Burrow was hurt. So, yeah, that's a thing.
Well, we'll see what happens in that game. The Raiders are playing in Denver. Evan is taking the Broncos lone wolf with 4 confidence points. I've got 5 on the Raiders, and Eric's got 9 on Vegas. So, Evan, why Denver?
I vented a little bit about the Raiders earlier in their latest spectacular choke job. So I'm done with them. I hate the Raiders. So give me Denver. I can't stand the Raiders.
I'm done with Denver after they lost to the Chargers last week when I picked them.
Oh, well, you should have picked the Chargers.
Apparently.
Oh.
The Broncos, I guess, could win this game, and I put relatively somewhat low confidence in the Raiders. There were some other games that were just much more difficult to pick that I had to go lower than for this one. But
Titans lost to the Bengals by 11 points on November 1st.
Yeah, I was wrong though. Joe Burrow did play in that game.
Yeah, so there you go. The Broncos don't impress me that much. The Raiders don't impress me that much either. I honestly don't know why I picked the Raiders, but I did. So
I don't know why you did either.
I probably should just pick the home team, which is not the Raiders.
I mean, I picked the Raiders because the Raiders beat the crap out of the Broncos last time they played. And since both teams are not very good, that's what I have to go off of. So I'm just going to say, hey, that's going to happen again. Big brain.
There you go.
Weather looks nice in Denver on Sunday.
Oh, that should help the Raiders a little bit. I am still not picking the Chargers as they go and play in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. But I'm the lone wolf picking the Chiefs for this game. I've got 3 confidence points on Kansas City. Eric's got 3 on the Chargers, and Evan has 9 on the Chargers. I'll be honest, I actually had more confidence in the Chiefs before I realized that for whatever reason, it's not going to be Matt Moore as their starting quarterback. It's Chad Henne. I don't know why Chad Henne is their second string over Matt Moore, who's on their practice squad. But I still think the Chiefs are going to be the better team. I think they're going to have the better game plan. I still think they have better players overall. And they're at home. And I don't trust the Chargers. And their awful special teams. And their bad defense. So,
I mean,
why 9 points on the Chargers, Evan?
Because I'm desperate to catch up, and kind of got to dance with who brung me a little bit. Even though she's a little crazy, and erratic, and this is where we're at right now. So I mean, this is obviously going to be Anthony Lynn's last game. Maybe the players like him.
Win one for the Gipper, yeah.
Yeah, win one for the guy who's on his way out. The Chiefs have nothing left to play for. They are benching everybody. No Mahomes, and the Chiefs have been looking a little shaky lately, having to play a close game against a Falcons team that's awful. So, for all those reasons, give me the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm inclined to roll with the Chargers for this one. I'm not as confident as Evan because
I'm not confident. I'm not confident.
I know. I don't have to dance with my crazy prom date here because, I went stag all year. I just rolled with who I thought was the best looking at the time. So I didn't have to rely on hopping on some bandwagon of some crappy team and hope that they turned around to get my confidence points up high enough. So, but Mahomes isn't going to play, which indicates that the other starters probably aren't going to play the entire game either. I can't imagine that they're going to say, hey, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce go out there and play all 60 while Mahomes chills on the bench. I don't see that as likely, which means that it's going to be mostly Chiefs backups going up against Chargers starters. The Chargers are a talented team. They're a little dysfunctional, and they don't have a great coaching staff, and we know Anthony Lynn's going to get fired and all that jazz. But they have an incentive to win purely out of pride, whereas the Chiefs have an incentive not to try to win purely out of staying healthy so they could try to go win another Super Bowl. And with that being the case, I'm going to roll with the Chargers because they're actually going to be fielding an NFL starting team, whereas the Chiefs are going to be having something less than out there.
Fair enough. Packers are playing in Chicago. We've all got the Packers. Eric and Evan have 12 points on Green Bay. I've got 9 on the Packers. The Bears are going to be playing their butts off because if they lose, they're pretty much out of things. They're already on the outside looking, or I guess they're technically in right now, but if they lose and the Cardinals win, then the Cardinals are in. So obviously the Packers are also going to be playing hard because they want to hold on to that number 1 seed in the NFC. And I think the Packers are the better team, so they should win. But they do have to go on the road. And the Bears have been hot lately. They've scored 30 points in 4 straight games. And the Packers defense isn't really all that. So that means the Packers are going to have to also score a lot of points, which they are more than capable of doing. But the Bears defense is pretty good. I give the Bears a very outside shot at this one.
I think the Bears' recent success has been a bit of fool's gold. They rolled Jacksonville this past week. Mm-hmm. Everybody rolls Jacksonville all the time. So, I think the Packers show the Bears what a real football team looks like. Packers roll once again.
Yeah, I'm not buying into the Bears have scored 30 points 4 games in a row because they did it against the Lions, the Texans, the Vikings.
My God.
And the Jaguars. So not exactly
4 homecoming opponents.
Yeah, so
all in a row.
And they still lost to the Lions despite scoring 30. So
oh my God.
There's that. Trubisky coughed a couple balls up at the end of the game. So the Packers are way better than the Bears. Aaron Rodgers is way better than Mitch Trubisky. I know Corey's trying to start the, Mitch Trubisky apology tour and trying to turn him into something he's not, which is an NFL starting quarterback.
He's a great quarterback.
$100 million.
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky's going to get cut, and Corey's going to be begging for him to come quarterback the team next year.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's going to take us to the promised land.
If Alex Smith isn't back, yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, the Packers are way better. Their defense has actually played respectably lately. I'm not really all that disappointed in them anymore. I think that their defense has really stepped up a little bit. They're 15th in the league in total DVOA now, -4 in weighted DVOA, so they're solid enough. And I think the Bears offense is taking advantage of an easy schedule, which, good for them. But the Packers and the Bears, there's definitely a mental block there when it comes to Chicago having to win big games against Green Bay. They don't do it. I mean, we saw this play out a few weeks ago. The game was over at halftime, and I don't expect this to be much different.
I mean, week 1 in 2018, when the Bears had just signed Khalil Mack, and the Bears were high rolling and stuff, and Rodgers gets injured, and the Bears are up big at half, and then Rodgers comes back miraculously, and the Packers win anyway. So, I mean, come on, it's this rivalry has been one-sided for the last 15 years or so, if not longer.
You can date it back to the Favre years too.
Yeah. So, the Bears, come on. They are who we thought they were, and the Packers will not be letting them off the hook this time.
The Saints are playing in Carolina. We're all pretty much on the same page here. Eric's got 14 on the Saints. Evan's got 13. I've got 12. The Panthers don't really have anything to play for. It doesn't look like McCaffrey or Mike Davis are going to be active for this game. The Saints, on the other hand, are trying to, at the very least, hold on to their number 2 seed. And again, if the Bears do somehow manage to beat the Packers, the Saints could leapfrog them with a win and potentially become the number 1 seed. I believe that's still in the cards for the Saints. So
the Seahawks don't win as well.
The Saints are ahead of the Seahawks.
Win.
Oh,
so here's how it has to go. Since the Seahawks, so the Packers have the head-to-head tiebreaker with the Saints. So if the Packers and Saints are tied for the NFC, like at the top of the NFC, obviously the Packers would be the 1 seed. But if they're also tied with the Seahawks, that head-to-head tiebreaker nullifies. It doesn't matter because it's a 3-way tie. So then it goes to conference record, and the Saints will have the best conference record among the 3 of them. So they would get the number 1, and the Packers would actually fall to the 3 if they all end up tied at 12-4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did the Seahawks get the 1 seed then? I thought the Seahawks got the 3-way tie.
No, the Seahawks get the 1 seed if the Packers lose and the Seahawks win.
And the Saints lose too.
Oh, so the Saints have the head-to-head against the Seahawks, or whatever the first tiebreaker is against the Seahawks?
The tiebreaker is when it's 3 ways, it goes to conference record since the teams hadn't all played each other, and the Saints have the best conference record. And then if it's just the Seahawks and the Packers...
Oh, right. Yeah.
The Packers and the Seahawks didn't play this year, so it will go to conference record, which would be tied, and then it would go to common games, which the Seahawks have clinched over the Packers.
Right. Yep. So that's how that whole thing shakes out with the top 3 seeds. But yeah, so the Saints absolutely have something to play for here. The Panthers are not a particularly good team, and they are going to be missing their top 2 running backs. I don't think they have much of a chance. So we're all very high in confidence on New Orleans. Which brings us to the Sunday night game featuring the team at the Link against the Eagles.
The football team.
Yeah. Jim Schwartz has said that they have instituted a no cap rule, basically, or no hat rule, basically meaning that they do not want to see the division winners be able to don their hats at the Link, which means that they need to win. None of us think that's going to be the case.
That sounds silly.
Eric's got the team with 1. I've got the football team with 4. Evan's got the club with 2. So, fairly low confidence because it's still the team, and they're on the road. But we all did take Washington to win it and wrap up the NFC East. I can tell you that I think that regardless of whether Alex Smith ends up being active, the quarterback situation is going to be much better this week than it has been the last few weeks for Washington. I think the defense is really good and should make things difficult for Jalen Hurts. Hurts had a couple really nice games, but we saw him struggle this past week against a defense that, while they played pretty well for the game, they certainly were not as good as Washington's defense has been playing. So I think that they're going to make life difficult for Hurts. I think that our offense is capable of putting up some points on the Eagles' defense. So that would explain why I'm a little bit higher in confidence than my 2 colleagues here.
Yeah, I'm the lowest in confidence because I don't know who the hell is going to be the quarterback, so that kind of makes it tough. But I think that I decided to go worst case scenario. I think, which would be Taylor Heineke playing. I think that Alex Smith would be a preferable option because he's actually started in the NFL for a long time and is a veteran quarterback, whereas Heineke's kind of a journeyman. Uh, that
Has he
comes in.
started in the NFL ever?
I don't know if he's ever made a start. I know he's been on rosters, but I don't know if he's ever actually made a start. But I saw something from him, which is better than Haskins. That doesn't mean that he's going to repeat it this week, but I also see that Jalen Hurts has been trending in the wrong direction since his first start against New Orleans, where he had a very good game against the Saints, and then he had a pretty mediocre game against the Cardinals, and then he had an outright terrible game against the Cowboys. So he's kind of regressed to being, lately he's played like a sub replacement level quarterback, which is still better than what they had with Carson Wentz. But that means
Better than the guy who got replaced.
Yeah, that means that if he's going up against a good defense, a replacement level quarterback against that fierce Washington football team defense could wreak serious havoc. We could be looking at a situation like we had when the team played the 49ers and pretty much won the game with their defense because they didn't get any offensive production at all. I think that you could see something similar. And I also think that Washington's offense could move the ball at times against the Eagles because their defense isn't very good. Whereas they've had to play a handicap because they've either had to play a team with a good defense or they've had to play with Dwayne Haskins. And neither of those things apply this week. So the offense should be in a better place. The defense is going to, I presume, is going to have a very good day against the rookie quarterback. And the team wins in a squeaker, and it will be a T-shirt and hat type of day at the link.
Certainly hope so. It's hard to trusting the team is not a boat you want to be in.
That's why I've got 1 point on him.
I have twice as much confidence as Eric with 2 points.
But half the confidence that I have.
That's not how this works. It's a ranking.
I mean, I guess, but still, is it not double?
It's double, but to say you have twice the confidence, no, you just have less confidence or you have more confidence in two other teams. It's not double the confidence. The confidence isn't quantifiable. It's a ranking.
I'd rather quantify it.
That's like saying that the guy that's second in the league in rushing yards has half the rushing yards as the guy in first. That's not how it works.
He just has half the ranking.
Yeah, which is not the same thing.
Anyway, I mean, Washington's defense is really good. That's really the only really good unit that's going to take the field on Sunday night. The Eagles' offense is bad, their defense is bad, and Washington's offense is bad. So, you pick the team that's good at one of the aspects of the game. Jim Schwartz saying that no hats and T-shirts or whatever, that just sounds like a bunch of foolishness. That doesn't sound like an effective way to coach grown men. So that just sounds ridiculous, Jim Schwartz. So give me WFC to get the W on SNF.
In the NFC. So that takes us through all 16 of this week's games. I can't.
Eric's about to start his own podcast. He looks embarrassed to be associated with us too.
No.
I've got a couple of shout outs before we wrap up today's show. First, I want to give a shout out to Stephen April, the champion of our fantasy football league this year. Went 12-2 in the regular season and then won his 2 playoff games. Beat Evan this week for the championship after beating me in the semifinals. Really good season for him. Had a good draft, made some really good trades. Eric gave him Darren Waller for a bag of beans.
Let's slow down with the gave him. I got his 4th-round pick.
You got his 4th-round pick, and
a draft pick.
We'll see if you actually make good use of that or not.
Football are a complete crapshoot. What? You could end up with a guy who gets hurt in week 1, and that'd be it.
Generally speaking, that doesn't happen to me. So.
No, you just draft guys who end up getting fumbleitis.
That hasn't happened in like 7 years.
That's true. Regardless, thank you, Eric, for giving Stephen April his championship on us. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, Stephen had a great season. Congratulations to him. He's actually the first person, other than our founding members, to win a title in our league. So that's pretty cool. And did it in his 3rd season with us. Evan was in the championship game. It was his first time in the playoffs since our first year with this league and his first title game appearance. So congratulations to you, Evan, on having at least make it that far. And, you were 10th in scoring in the league during the regular season, but the thing is,
better to be lucky than good.
But the thing is, you weren't really all that lucky if you look at it from a top 6 weeks perspective. Your bad weeks were really, really, really bad, and your good weeks were you were barely in the top 6, but you were in the top 6 for your wins. So
I had some flunkers this season.
So
one of them was a win.
I can't say that you were. I can't say that you were like absurdly lucky. You picked your spots. So there you go. I made the playoffs, had a lot of bad luck. Eric had a lot of bad luck, but that isn't what kept him out of the playoffs. He just had a bad year. But better luck next year to all of us.
I prefer a mediocre year with some bad luck to make it really bad.
You should have been 6-8 instead of 3-11.
So mediocre.
Went 3-11.
Yeah, he went 3-11.
I did. It was crazy.
It's a guy who's gone 12-2 3 times in 8 years. So,
I prefer to say 12-2 3 times in 4 years because that's also true, but sounds better.
So there you have it. I hope to be starting a fantasy football podcast at some point this off season to kind of talk about fantasy football topics as we prepare for the 2021 year, which is quite a ways away. It's kind of sad. It's always very, very sad for me when I have to close the book on the fantasy season and we don't get any fantasy football for 9 months. But it is.
Forgive me for being excited that the year 2020 is going away. I don't know if you noticed, but it's been a bit of a doozy.
Yes, it has been. My other shout out is to my mom. Her birthday is tomorrow, New Year's Eve. So happy birthday to her.
Yes.
Any shout outs from you guys?
I mean, not really. Shout out to whatever I'm about to eat for dinner. I'm hungry. Really all I got.
Okay. Eric, anything?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. Well, then, you guys all know this, but I'll go through it anyway. You can follow us on Twitter at SportsBars18. You can follow us individually. I'm at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can email us. thesportsbars@gmail.com is our address. It's our last week of the NFL season. You can still send picks in, though, for this and for the playoffs and get yourself on our weekly leaderboard. It's way too late to get on our season leaderboard at this point. But you can certainly do that. You can send us mailbag questions that way. Make sure you hit that follow button or that like button on Facebook. Follow our podcast to be alerted anytime we drop a new one. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon. I've also been uploading our podcast to our YouTube channel, so you can follow us on there if you like. But yeah.
Subscribe.
Be sure to subscribe. Leave us a review if you feel so inclined. We're always happy to get feedback on our on what we're doing well or what we're not doing so well. Always looking for that feedback. So that's going to do it for our last show of 2020. For Eric Meyer and Evan Ash, I'm Corey Puffett. This has been the Sports Bars Podcast, episode 124, and we will see you guys again next year.